The other day, I posted a video featuring the Bismarck in which I heavily emphasized the importance of positioning in battleships. I even emphasized it over accuracy in battleships. But World of Warships Legends is a game that has a fair bit of nuance and depth. So, everything that one could say about the game, including the fact that positioning is one of the key skills to master in battleship gameplay, you could turn around and say that accuracy is also quite valuable to battleships, and I suppose you wouldn't be wrong. The USS Iowa, one of the earliest battleships in this game, and in fact the first Tier 7 tech tree ship that I ever got, is one of the most consistently accurate battleships in the game, and I was taking it out a couple nights ago to see if I could film some footage in order to work on a little bit of a special project I've had in mind for a while. That's a tutorial video on aiming. And so you can see with shots like this, where I line it up perfectly on the Georgia, I sort of wanted to stay on the shots as they traveled to watch where they hit. Obviously, that's impossible on that Georgia, but as you can see, they do hit his citadel, and we do nearly 24,000 damage to him. That's not the only salvo like that we're going to get in this game, by the way. And the reason that we're going to get so many good salvos in this game, the next one coming up, in fact, is also going to be pretty great, is because we're taking some extra time when we zoom down the binoculars to line up our shots and aim them as precisely as possible. Now, the reason I was doing that, of course, was because I was trying to film clips of me shooting at ships in order to analyze them to teach people how to aim. So you see here, we take a little bit of extra time to line up on the York, who's going behind the island. I think he tries to turn at the last second, but it's far too late. We essentially cripple that York with a single salvo, and in the span of firing our guns twice and landing 9 shells total, we've done nearly 50,000 damage. There's a good amount to be said for that. But there's also something to be said about our positioning. You saw earlier in the game I was pinging my teammates on the comm wheel. That's because they've all driven toward Bravo, and in fact one of them has gone down. They formed a classic sort of lemming train, and generally speaking, it's not a good idea for one team to put all of its ships on one side of the map. When they do, you've sort of got two choices. You can either join them or you can go the opposite way. Sometimes, if you go the opposite way, it can work out very, very well for you. But if you're playing a battleship, well, you're playing the class of ships that has the unique ability to dev strike enemies all the way from across the map. But you're going to need somebody else to spot those enemies for you, which is why I pinged the friendly CV. Seems like he spotted that mines out there who looks like he might be in a turn. He is in a turn. We can see him committing to it now, so we waited a second to line up our shot properly, and we lined it up pretty well because once again, we hit the mines for a pretty massive salvo, 10,000 damage, and that's not even on his broadside. The mines, too, has essentially been crippled, especially after getting shot from across the map there by one of my teammates. Or maybe that was the CV that dropped him, I don't know. But in any case, we're fighting a Mines, a York, and a Vittorio Veneto on this flank. Veneto's at full health, but the two cruisers are crippled, and this may very well be the killing blow. However, we need to take a look at the minimap, because that Veneto is pushing in quite aggressively. He's going to be coming around that corner any second now, and as far as I remember, the York was right behind him. York, of course, he did take that 24,000 damage salvo from us a couple moments ago, or maybe it was 25,000, I don't remember, but he still has enough HP left that he could potentially come near me and launch torpedoes. I suspect that is what his plan is. But for now, we need to start chunking the Veneto, so aiming up into a superstructure nets us a fair deal of damage. We're up to 72,000 damage done, and it hasn't even been 5 minutes in this game yet. Veneto looks like he's threatening to turn broadside, but not quite. And that is when my plane acquires vision of the York, who is indeed hiding behind that island, just waiting for me to come close enough where he feels like he is safe to pop out and launch torpedoes at me. Ideally, in this sort of situation, I really wouldn't want to be charging a Veneto and a York, but I really have no ability to disengage. I'm pretty committed here. I'm bow into this Veneto, way too close to turn around and try to start kiting away, although ideally I'd like to kite away and have these guys push into me. That would put me at a little bit more of an advantage. I wouldn't have to worry about things like Yorks coming around the corner. Obviously, it doesn't matter. We're able to take him out. And I wouldn't have to worry about the potential for this Veneto to ram me. This is another reason why I don't like to get this up close and personal, like this early on in the game. People will ram you. And of course, there we mess up the drive-by. Didn't quite get our guns on target when the Veneto was unangled enough for our shells to actually penetrate, so he's still well over half health. We sail past him. We're going to keep ourselves angled. His sap secondaries are honestly a little bit of a threat. They are doing fair amounts of damage every time they hit our hull there, and it's not insignificant amounts of damage either, so we're really going to need to take this guy down. We have had the assistance of the friendly CV this entire game, which is a good thing. There's no way I could have been this successful on this flank without his spotting. And of course, he did some damage to that York, for example, and I think the mines as well. He's helping me out here with this Veneto, who has smoked up. And, well, he's gone dark in the process of smoking up, but smoke screens work both ways, and as soon as my firing penalty wears off, I go dark too, which is a good respite. I need a little bit more time for this last heal to come off cooldown. I want to have that up and ready for when we re-engage this Veneto. Of course, the enemy CV is coming back and spotting me, so that's not really going to work. Veneto gets a good decent chunk into my superstructure there, trying to turn to get all the guns on target and adjusting my aim as I notice the Veneto is really committing to a turn. We get a decent chunk off of him as well, maybe not as good as the one he got off on us, but he is on low health, so are we. Kaga, the enemy CV, is coming around for a bomb drop. Not much I can do about it. He hits me there, lights a fire. Down to 5k health. Veneto smacks me as well. Down to 940 hit points. 11 seconds left to go on that heal. Rear turret is reloaded. Hesitating to shoot it, though. Luckily, the enemy, or the friendly CV, comes in clutch with those torps, putting the Veneto on very low health. And RNGesus blesses us with good RNG on the rear turret of Justice. We take out the Veneto, get the high caliber, and the Charlie flank is essentially clear now. But one thing to note, after having watched this battle, is that pretty much every shot I took in this game was extremely accurate. Maybe not extremely accurate, but it was aimed well. And there is value in aiming well. I think aiming is a skill in this game that some people could brush up on, which is why I was trying to film footage in order to create sort of an aiming tutorial. Aiming is not very straightforward in this game, and there are, I think, a lot of mistakes people make with aiming, but the cardinal mistake, the one thing that you should take away from this video, is leaning too heavily into the auto-aim. Whenever you zoom in with either the L2 button or the left trigger, whenever you zoom in at a target and you're locked onto that target, the game will provide you an approximate lead for your shots every time you zoom in. And a lot of people, when they're playing this game, they zoom in and they take the shot instantly. But that lead that the auto-aim gives you is approximate. I think, this is just my theory, but I think it is calculated for a ship that is going a certain amount of speed, and I think that speed is somewhere around 25 knots. So if you got ships going faster, you often really have to manually adjust your aim. And you'll note that in basically every shot I took in this game, I did that. I manually adjusted my aim. So that's what I would say to you as a start before I make my full aiming guide is don't lean into the auto aim too much. It can be deceptive. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.